Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead, and agriculture meteorologist Greg Soulje is with us here today. Welcome, Greg.
Hello, Sarah. Hope you and everyone are well out there. And what's been over the past few days a pretty chaotic weather pattern for some folks in the plains, the upper Midwest, and the Corn Belt. And hopefully you have enjoyed the rainfall. And I guess for some now, as opposed to a little on the shorter side of the gauge, it's been too much of a good thing for folks in the Great Lakes areas and parts of the upper Midwest.
Some folks are saying turn off that spigot, Greg.
Yeah. Well, don't ask too much and wish for what you want, because it may come to fruition and then you got troubles. But going forward here, I think we're in relatively good shape.
Very good. All right, your slides are up. Go ahead and give us the update, please.
Okay, and of course, folks keeping an eye on the weather, continue to keep an eye on the tropics. They have become active and will continue to be, as we have been talking about on these broadcasts and on radio on this Week in Agribusiness, a shorter but kind of compact, hyperactive remainder of the tropical weather season. It's finally getting going, and yes, it is and has driven the weather pattern across the heartland. And we'll talk about what may come about here with the next two weather systems in the next 2 or 3 weeks to contend with. But in the meantime, it's a pair of cold fronts. And boy, finally, the humidity is expected to come on down. When we get these tropical systems and we talk about them all the time, and people probably wonder and ponder, why are we talking about weather hundreds, if not thousands of miles away? Because it has a direct influence, depending on their movement, on how we adjust the jet stream, the upper air pattern, and hence that is what moves weather systems. And hence that's what transpires from a sensible weather standpoint across the plains for livestock and across the Corn Belt too. In any event, yes, it's been a little dry out there. I've been hearing complaints from my radio pals in Champaign and Danville, not to a point where there's been any crop related issues. The crop is along and moving well ahead of schedule. Now we've got, of course, maybe too much water. And of course, there are folks that dealt with severe weather in small areas of the Midwest. But in any event, with the rains moving on through, and there's another round or two expected Tuesday afternoon and evening time, but less from the way of coverages. Before the rains, 42% of Indiana's topsoils, 43% through Ohio, and 40% of Michigan were drier than we would like to see. We have made significant inroads. It's been, with these thunderstorms, they tend to be all or nothing. They rain themselves out one after another, just like our railroad boxcar system. We call that a training effect in thunderstorm jargon. And sometimes you put down these multi-inch rainfall totals, and there are a number of areas that have seen that. The eastern Dakotas, parts of Minnesota, north, west, and south of the Twins, north and northeastern Iowa, parts of northern Illinois, just to name a few. So the beat goes on, and cooler, drier air on two cold fronts expected to come on southward. It will be a far more comfortable air mass. Kind of thinking that even farm progress might be relatively easy going in the temperature department. Of course, we're always chasing rain around that time of the year in any event. Anyway, back in the plain states, as of the 17th of August, topsoil moisture, short, very short, no big surprise. Texas at 56%, 50% in through Oklahoma. Otherwise, boy, it has been hot. It has been humid, but relief has been in parts of the northern plains of the Dakotas past couple of days. It's been back into some of a hotter category, but we'll move back into a cooler one. In any event, spring harvest and summer crop harvest continues on in relatively good order across the upper Midwest. It's been hot. It's been humid. Heat index values pushing 105, 110, 115 from the Ozarks into the lower Mississippi Valley. Otherwise, field work continues on. Rice harvest continues on for areas in the mid-Atlantic region. The easternmost Carolina is one of our favorite places out there towards Cape Hatteras and Kitty Hawk. We'll get the outermost circulation from Aaron. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. But other than that, weather is on a somewhat typical note, except for the heat into the sections of the lower Mississippi Valley. It's pretty much par for the course weather in the southeastern United States. The heat as well breaking across the Pacific Northwest, northern Rockies. The monsoon setup continues into the southern Rockies, and it's pretty much steady she goes weather-wise across the western states here for the foreseeable future. There's the Tuesday afternoon weather maps and charts. There is the first of a couple of cold fronts making its way from Michigan down in through Kansas. The monsoon set up into the southwest. Some welcome rains in through Texas. The rainy season continues on in through Florida. Boy, the past week to 10 days to 2 weeks, some 5, 6, 7, 8 inches of rain into southwest Florida in that area, Everglades area as well, not too far from there. So there should be some drought improvement with time there. And you can see kind of a circulating band of lines over Florida and the Western Atlantic. That is the outermost circulation, outermost rain bands from Aaron. There is Aaron just beginning to come on frame here by tonight. It will make a run halfway between or maybe slightly closer to the U.S. shoreline, but halfway between roughly Bermuda and the East Coast. But it is such a huge sprawling storm. There will be a direct influence about Aaron through areas of the Carolinas, the Outer Banks, and those particular areas of the country. Scattered showers, thunderstorms otherwise for the eastern and southern Corn Belt. Back into the plains, bubble of high pressure across the Canadian prairie continues to strengthen. You can see that cold front making its way down to the Ohio Valley. A little leftover shower activity for parts of the western Corn Belt. The scattered showers and thunderstorms, and that front should begin to break the heat down through the Delta region. Pretty quiet across the west. The heat is going to retrograde back into the high plains along the divide in the coming days. And there is Aaron. Probably it'll be a strong Cat 4 or 5. With again, there's been a slight more of a westward movement, but a turn to the northwest. The north is expected here over the next 24 to 36 hours. And there is the movement on Aaron, and it'll lash the coastal sections. Maybe some of the outer rain bands and squalls will get into the easternmost areas of Cotton Belt country and through the eastern Carolinas. That cold front will slow on up, stall on out. And there's a pretty impressive upper weather system coming out of the Canadian prairie that will have a direct influence, along with Aaron, on weather and temperatures across the heartland going forward. And there is Aaron, that front stall on out, kind of getting absorbed. Wind shear begins to take hold, but not before eastern parts of North Carolina, Elizabeth City, Cape Hatteras, Kitty Hawk, down to Cape, again, Cape Hatteras, as mentioned, to about maybe the easternmost areas of the Raleigh-Durham area will get an impact from Aaron. And the showers and thunderstorms continue Gulf Coast areas. The next cold front, and it's a substantial one, into the northern plains. When we get these systems that make their way up across the northern and western Atlantic into the North Sea, and we can tap into the jet stream energy, you put a big old hole in the atmosphere, air rushes into that, and that's how we change the weather around here. If you move these tropical systems westward into the U.S., it's hot, high pressure. You move them into the North Atlantic, the North Sea, you bring down a piece of cooler air, and you get a nice refreshing air mass. Sometimes late in the tropical weather season, that could mean a quick early frost. Non-damaging or threatening this year, I think, but that's something we have to keep an eye out for. The next 48 hours, you can see the organized rains for New York State, Ohio, Indiana, into the southern Corn Belt, back into the Great Plains. Some of those pasture lands and winter wheat fields need a little more moisture, as we just mentioned about through Oklahoma and Texas. That is back in the forecast too. We're away from any severe weather potential, we think, as that front kind of loses its oomph, if you will, with Aaron in the way. But a couple of stronger storms over parts of the plains at Ohio Valley. And boy, storms have been scattered. And since last weekend, for example, in parts of eastern Champaign County, western Vermilion County, reports of some crop damage there. We've had it into parts of the upper Midwest and scattered select areas, not to mention, as we did mention, some of the pockets of very heavy rainfall. Speaking of which, here is the flood forecast for the next 5 days, and underway already into parts of southwest Minnesota. That streak from the Kickapoo to west of Lambeau Field through central Wisconsin and southeast Wisconsin. They're still dealing with the aftermath from a couple of weeks ago, that 15-inch rain or close to it. West Allis and some of those areas west of the state fairgrounds. And again, now in the northeast Illinois and parts of northwest Indiana, we have some producer friends and fans down there in Will County, and each and every morning they've had it pretty easy in some spots, but have put together almost 5 inches of rain so far for the month of August. And some of those saw that, let alone the past 24 hours west of Chicago. In any event, here are the tropical stories to contend with. That red bullseye is Aaron on the satellite picture, the infrared channel, and you can see two little X's, and most of these things coming off the African coast have been pretty benign, uneventful. Well, the Saharan dust issue has been resolved. Wind shear for now has been resolved, and so there is a pretty good odds that one or both of those weather systems will get together here in the next 3 to 5 days and show some development into tropical depression if not storm form. And you can see they are already south of where the storm track from Aaron is. And if we put a trough, if you will, into the North Atlantic, that's going to steer systems farther south. So there's some concern through, Puerto Rico and the Caribbean islands, maybe into the Keys and into the Gulf of Mexico out probably the next 10 to 12 days from now, that we've got some concern mounting with regard to tropical weather development. When those things come into the Gulf, by the way, it's a wide open shoot on where those things are going to go. Texas, the Gulf Coast, the Southern Corn Belt, up the Eastern Seaboard. All those are possible. And we'll kind of update you on the fall forecast, which I think we may have to take into account a couple of those tropical systems early on into the fall season. So maybe a couple of quick cool snaps, maybe some added moisture more than we may want, getting ready to go into crop maturity mode in some southern areas of the Corn Belt. There's a storm track on Aaron swinging out to sea, but it'll get caught up in an upper trough. When that happens, the atmosphere kind of bombs out, as we call it. Explosive development of a low into the North Atlantic. It brings the jet stream wind southward, and at least across the plains and Corn Belt, hardly any stress on man, beast, the back 40. And I don't want to hear about people talking about an early fall. But it may feel fall-like for some areas of the upper Midwest going forward. There is the storm track on Aaron moving into the Western Atlantic. There is one system there in the orange that's going to make a track probably closer to Jamaica. And then it's up in the air where that thing's going to go. And there's a third one out there off the African coast. Both show 50 to 70% odds in the next 5 to 7 days of strengthening into either depression or a named storm. I don't remember the Ferdinand, I think might be the next one in the alphabet, coming across the Atlantic Basin. By the way, Pacific Basin has quieted down. We think we're officially finally done with El Nino, and people are already rampaging on social media about La Nina and winter Armageddon and all that. We'll have a couple of thoughts on that, by the way. At least let's have some thinking points on the winter season when we get together for our live stream tomorrow, Wednesday, the 20th at 1:30 Central Time. So Bermuda, halfway between North Carolina and Bermuda. We talked about that. Coastal sections of the mid-Atlantic region, wind and rain. Outside of that, still a pretty active weather pattern for the far eastern and southern Corn Belt, southern plains, and points on eastward with some welcome rainfall anticipated in the next couple of 2 or 3 days. And there are the upper air charts. Friday to Saturday, you can see a system through the Canadian Prairie. That low east of Maine and New England is the upper air signature to Aaron. So you can see how we have two separate features. Then all of a sudden by Sunday to Monday, we've got what we call a full scale, full latitude trough. Kind of tough to get that to happen. Only in the tropical sense here, you can get that really going at this point in summertime. And so we get a pretty snappy trough, a nice cool air intrusion, and a nice break in the heat and humidity for many areas of the northern and eastern plains, Corn Belt locales. And we'll drive that cold front all the way down to the southeastern states going forward. So a break in the heat and humidity there through early to mid next week. And you can see the pretty good of a winder upper low, as we call it, through Canada for the time of year. And that is a result of absorbing that trough, a surface low, and Aaron all into picture as we move on through Sunday, Monday, Tuesday next week. And a nice big H, cooler, drier, far more comfortable air. Nights will fall into the 50s as far south as northern Missouri, central Illinois, Indiana at some point early to mid next week. Next 7 days, that's all air in there in the Atlantic. And some welcome rains again for Kansas, parts of Oklahoma, the southeastern states, and what should be, generally speaking, but probably I'm getting this gut feeling it's not, the winding down of some of these organized rains. We talked about dryness or drought getting going in more significant fashion as the late season wound into the fall season. And we'll talk about that Wednesday. I think we've got some tropical issues to contend with first and foremost. There's last Thursday's drought monitor. Marked improvement northern and central plains, down through Oklahoma and Texas as well, drying out. Those soils were getting dry into Oklahoma, eastern Oklahoma, Arkansas. That's been the core of the heat, but there should be welcome rains moving forward there. Still some drier patches, but non-crop threatening Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. But again, away from the severe stuff and the significant rainfall, there should be on Thursday and the following Thursday some modest improvement to topsoil moisture levels in that particular part of the Corn Belt. Ridge in the west, trough in the east, that U-shaped configuration, that's going forward the next 6 to 10 days. Pretty good chunk of cold air up near the polar region, and that's what you expect. The days are getting shorter in that particular part of the hemisphere, and ours as well. And a little overdone, a little dramatic, but for this purpose, talking points, yeah, nice relief, change of the weather pattern to cooler, drier air. This might be a little bit overdone from the folks of the Weather Service, and the right idea about the heat across the west. Moisture maybe a little overdone in the western states, a little too exuberant and early in the plains, but the right idea that we do for now move into a drier weather pattern for much of the Corn Belt, probably eastern plains as well. That moisture for the eastern states is what's left of that trough and air early on going out to sea. And that is pretty much the story on the short term of it all. There's Sarah here on this Tuesday. We'll get together Wednesday, the 20th at 1 o'clock. Talk about, well, the shorter term stuff, update the tropics, update the fall forecast, and a couple of bullet points. Yes, we are moving into a La Nina weather pattern. Probably here we are mid-August. We're about 4 to 6 months, I think, out before getting into anything significant. So La Ninas that get going in wintertime, maybe sometimes things do get a little more rambunctious than usual. It does get cold, it does snow, and we do get ice. That's the rumor in the plains and Midwest. So that may happen as well, but that's wintertime. But we'll talk about that in greater detail on Wednesday.
Yeah, tomorrow, actually, 1 o'clock Central. Make sure you tune in for that. And Greg's going to take that longer term outlook and give us fall and a little bit of winter. So not ready to talk winter quite yet, though, Greg.
No,
not even ready to think about it. But
having been down in Florida last week in the Keys, no, that was me screaming, gnashing, and wailing of teeth and mouth coming back on Friday. But it is what it is. A beautiful part of the world down there.
Oh, exactly. All right. Well, we'll touch base with you tomorrow. Appreciate it. And we appreciate all you tuning in as well.